Imagine this. The year is 1066. The King of England has just died. And here's the thing, he has no children, no obvious heir to take his place. Suddenly, the most powerful throne in the land is completely empty. Three incredibly powerful men believe the crown belongs to them, and you better believe they are ready to fight for it. So let's dig in and find out who these guys were and figure out who really had the strongest claim.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll set the scene for this epic power struggle. Then, we are going to meet our three main contenders. We've got the Insider, the Promise Keeper, and the Viking Warrior. And finally, we'll lay out all the evidence so you can decide for yourself who really deserved that crown. All right, let's start with the crisis itself, a crown without a king. We're in the year 1066, and you have to understand, for everyone in England, from the richest lord to the poorest farmer, the future just became incredibly uncertain. I mean, really think about it. What happens when a king dies and there's no son or daughter to just take over? Well, back in the 11th century, it basically meant one thing: chaos. It meant a dangerous, messy scramble for power where the strongest, or maybe just the luckiest, might come out on top. And this is exactly the situation England is in. King Edward the Confessor has died, and he was childless. Now, this isn't just some family drama. This is a full-blown national crisis. It creates this huge power vacuum, and you can be sure there are some very ambitious men just waiting to fill it. This map, well, it shows us the battlefield perfectly. You've got the prize, England, sitting right there in the middle. But look, the challengers are already closing in, from Normandy just across the channel to the south, and from the Viking Kingdom of Norway all the way across the North Sea. Okay, so let's meet our first contender. We'll start with the man who's already on the scene, the ultimate insider, Harold Godwinson. Now, Harold Godwinson wasn't some nobody hoping for a lucky break. The moment the king died, Harold was already the wealthiest and most powerful man in the entire country. He was English, he was right there, and he was ready to make his move. So let's look at his stats. His connection to the throne wasn't through blood, but it was pretty darn close. His own sister was the king's wife. And, crucially, he was English through and through. As the super-powerful Earl of Wessex, he had immense respect and a ton of resources. You could say he was the homegrown candidate. Now, the absolute core of Harold's claim comes down to this single moment. He says that as King Edward was lying on his deathbed, the king pointed right at him and said, "I commend all the kingdom to your protection." For Harold and all his supporters, this was a clear instruction. I mean, a deathbed wish from a king. That was basically a sacred command. So to sum up Harold's position, his strengths are pretty obvious. He's English, he's popular with the other nobles, and he seems to have the late king's blessing. But his weaknesses are just as big. He has zero royal blood, and in an age where people believed kings were chosen by God, that was a huge problem. And, as we're about to find out, there's a very serious rumor that he'd already promised the throne to someone else. Which leads us perfectly to contender number 2. Let's pop across the English Channel and meet the man we'll call the Promise Keeper, William, the Duke of Normandy. William's resume looks totally different. Yeah, he has a distant blood link to King Edward, but he's Norman, basically French, not English at all. So what was his biggest asset? His reputation. William was known far and wide as a fearsome and brilliant military commander. And let's be honest, the ability to keep order with an iron fist was a very desirable quality in a medieval king. Okay, now to really get William's main argument, you have to understand what an oath meant back then. This wasn't just a promise you could cross your fingers and break later. No, an oath was a sacred vow made before God himself. To break one was a terrible sin, the kind of thing people believed would get your soul damned for all eternity. It was a huge deal. So William's entire case really rested on two things. His biggest strength was his claim that Harold Godwinson had sworn one of these sacred oaths to support him for the throne. Plus, he had the military muscle to back that claim up. His main weakness? He was a foreigner. And Harold's defense was pretty simple. He said he was forced to make the oath under duress, so it shouldn't count. But hold on, there was a third man, a total wild card, who believed the crown was his through old promises and the right of conquest. So let's head north and meet the terrifying Viking warrior, Harald Hardrada, the King of Norway.
And look, if William was fearsome, Harold Hardrada was the stuff of legends. His name literally means hard ruler, and he was widely considered the most feared and respected warrior in all of Europe. This guy was a veteran of countless battles. He was brave, he was cunning, and he was incredibly cruel. So what was his claim? Okay, it's a little complicated, but stick with me. It all comes down to a deal made between previous kings years earlier. A former king of England and Denmark, a guy named Harthacnut, had agreed that if he died without any kids, his throne would pass to the king of Norway. Well, that claim got passed down the line, eventually ending up with Harold Hardrada.
Let's review his case, shall we? His strengths are massive. That incredible warrior reputation, for one. He also had support from Harold Godwinson's own brother, Tostig, who'd been exiled. And a lot of people in the north of England were actually of Viking descent, so they might have welcomed him. His weakness? Well, his claim is pretty indirect, based on an old deal between kings who are long dead.
Okay, so there you have it. 3 powerful men, 3 very different claims to the exact same throne. Which brings us to our final section, who has the strongest claim? And for this part, well, it's over to you.
Let's just lay it all out one last time, head to head. You've got Harold, whose claim is based on the king's last words, and his big strength is being the English choice. Then there's William, who rests his entire case on that sacred oath, backed up by his terrifying army. And finally, you have Hardrada, with his claim coming from that old Viking deal, bolstered by his legendary status as a warrior. Each one has a major weakness, too. No royal blood, being a foreigner, or having a really old, complicated claim.
So let's put you in the shoes of an English noble back in 1066. You've heard all the arguments, you've weighed all the evidence. Who would you support? The powerful insider chosen by the last king? The formidable duke who's claiming betrayal over a broken oath? Or the most feared Viking warrior in the entire world, with a claim forged in old alliances? The choice, and the entire future of England, is yours.